What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video. Captain Cody Davis here with you guys again for another one. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about what is, without a doubt, my favorite technique in the world of bass fishing, and that is flipping and pitching. And more specifically, I'm going to go over some tips that I can give you guys for those of you that are relatively new to the flipping and pitching game, looking to get into it, not sure if you're doing it right, or just these are just some easy steps that are going to build your confidence when getting into trying to get out there and flip. This is without a doubt the most technique specific guide trip that I get asked and get booked for. I have a lot of people that just want to learn how to flip and pitch, not only what I'm using, exactly the little nuances that come with it, what I'm looking for, how I'm reading the water. There's all kinds of little, nuance, little tidbits that you can pick up along the way over time on the water. But just to get started, these are some little tricks and little shortcuts I give people that will help you boost your confidence without a doubt. And at the end of the day, just get you more familiar and there's a moth flying around me. More familiar and just more comfortable with the technique in amongst itself. So basically, we're just going to start. There's some things that I go over with people. Obviously, I show them some things while we're out on the water and show them on the boat. But then this is not something that you're going to go out and perfect in one day. This is something that definitely takes time on the water and just need to be repetitive with it. One of the best ways to do this is, I tell people, is get a flipping rod or two, rig them up, and when you go out on the water the next time, only bring those two rods. I mean, just make it so that it is your only option, because not just with flipping, but with any type of technique that someone is new to, I feel like people don't give it the time of day. They'll pick it up. They'll say, man, I want to learn how to throw a frog. They'll throw a frog for 5 minutes, and then they're back to their speed worm or their chatterbait or whatever their confidence deal is. Don't give yourself that out. Stick with it, and that's definitely the best way to learn. And kind of my number one tip, that's probably my number one tip, is rig up some flipping rods, take all the other baits out of your boat so that that's your only option. But more specifically also, or I shouldn't say more specifically, but a key component to that is go on a good flipping day, which what I mean by that is if you're on a big lake, like out here on Lake Okeechobee, and it's blowing 25 miles an hour, and depending on water level or what have you, there's not really any place to get sheltered from the wind and the elements, that's probably not the best flipping day. As the same way as if you go with like a post-frontal condition, you have overcast skies, you have conditions where these fish might be out and about and might be roaming, where it might be more productive to throw that swim jig, a swim bait, a spook, a top water, a chatterbait, whatever it might be. Those aren't the days to go out and really just try to concentrate on your flipping a lot of times. A lot of times, the tougher the conditions, the better the flipping bite can be. So you want to go on a day where it's comfortable for you so that you stick with it, but maybe it's not blowing very hard. And the conditions just set up for a good flipping bite overall on your home water. So that's probably number one tip, is just go and try to learn this when the conditions call for it. Another thing, one of the most, one of the biggest things that I get people asking me is, hey, I'm looking to get a new flipping rod. What should I look for, and what do you use? And what I use isn't probably what you should start out with. It's kind of the industry standard for a flipping stick throughout the country is anywhere from a 7.6 to a 7.11 heavy or extra heavy action rod, which in my opinion is without a doubt the best tool for the job. But with that being said, if you were new to the technique, you were first picking it up, that longer, heavier rod could definitely be, a little bit troublesome to get used to. It'll fatigue you very easily, very quickly throughout the day. And again, it's just going to make you not comfortable with the technique, and you're going to be more prone to putting it down and picking something else up. So when you're first getting started, you don't have to necessarily go out and buy exactly what you need. stick with a 7.2, a 7.3 medium heavy rod, something that's very comfortable and something that you could just get familiar and confidence with just the technique in itself of making a flip. You know, it looks very easy, it looks very effortless on TV when you see people that have a lot of experience doing so on your screen. But when you get out there and you try to do it, you try to be accurate, try to be quiet, and you just try to really do the motion in and of itself, it could be a little bit more difficult than it looks. So having that 7.2, 7.3, just a rod that you're more accustomed to using with other baits and other techniques, just rig it up for flipping and start with that. When it gets down to it, you want to take baby steps with this. You're not going to go out flipping for your first time and catch 38 pounds. That's not what's going to happen. You have to build up to that. So first and foremost, you want to just get familiar with the motion of flipping. And then you just want to feel comfortable. You don't want to get fatigued. And that smaller, lighter action rod is definitely going to help with that. Now, if you do get the bite, there is a 50-50 chance that you may lose the fish, you might miss the fish, whatever, but at least you're getting bites and at least you're gaining confidence in, what is the motion and the technique in and of itself. So that's very important. The next thing, excuse me, sorry. The next thing is the size line that's on your reel. A lot of people hear 50, 65 pound braid and get a little spooked, or even like 20 and 25 pound fluorocarbon. Although, again, in my opinion, that is what you want to use. And that varies depending on what you are flipping to, what kind of cover you're flipping to, or where in the country you're based out of. But don't be afraid to just scale down with line. It's going to be easier for you to control on the reel, which means it's going to be easier for you to flip with at the end of the day. And also, you're probably going to get more bites with the lighter line you're going to use. Now, with that being said, again, your chances of landing the fish out of that heavy cover around that wood, around that dock might decrease or go down, but at least you're getting the bite. And I think that's 99% of people's struggle when it comes to flipping is getting confidence that you're actually going to get bit. I say it all the time. A lot of people assume if you have a flipping stick in your hand that you're only going to get 5 bites in the course of a day. That is very, very far from the truth. Some of my biggest number days while guiding or tournament fishing out here on Okeechobee have all come with a flipping stick. It is a technique where you can get a ton of bites in a day if the conditions line up for it and you're doing it the right way. So getting those bites is crucial to getting you confidence and getting you comfortable in the technique. So don't be afraid to start light and then build your way up once you get more confident and comfortable from there. So don't be afraid to use lighter line. If everyone's using 50 or 65 pound test braid or 25 pound fluoro, use 15 pound fluoro or use 30 or 40 pound braid. And just so that you get comfortable. And again, you're going to be more, you're just going to be more comfortable. You're going to maybe be able to lay the bait in there a lot more silent, a lot more accurate. And which leads us into probably what is my next tip is one of the biggest things that people say or comment on as soon as we start flipping for the day on a trip where I'm trying to showcase to somebody what it is we're doing out there while we're flipping, is they complain about how loud their bait enters the water when they do it. And I feel like people watch it on TV, they see someone lay a 3/4 ounce weight onto a point of grass. It makes little to no splash whatsoever. It goes in silently. It's a perfect flip and it looks appealing. And then they flip it in there and it splashes and the bait lands sideways and what have you, and it just doesn't look as good. And they just automatically think, I'm not going to get bit. I'm wasting time. And again, that is so far from the truth, it's not even funny. I think a lot of times people focus way, way, way too much on that aspect. And I tell people, don't worry about that. That's going to come with time of perfecting the technique. But for now, don't worry about that. Especially if you're flipping in 4, 5, 6 feet of water, that splash is not going to spook that fish. It's not going to matter 9 times out of 10. Those fish, especially down here in Florida, are used to mullet, tilapia, boats, white caps. They're used to noise, so it's not going to affect them very much. Whereas maybe if you're in super skinny water, maybe you're in very clean water, maybe you're in a very pressured area, then I could see it making a difference. But that'll perfect itself over time the more comfortable you get with your setup and with flipping in general. So don't let that deter you from furthering trying to learn the technique. That's without a doubt the number one thing that customers kind of moan about. Like, I see, this is why I don't do it. I can't land it in there that quiet. And they almost looked at me like amazed when I tell them that has nothing to do with it. That doesn't matter. I feel like for some reason people get that concept in their head, but don't let that happen to you. It's not that big of a deal. And then when it comes to what you're flipping, flip something that looks good to you at first. Flip something you have confidence in. Confidence is everything. Everything in fishing in general, but definitely with, with this technique. So pitch something that looks good to you, where you look at it and say, I'd bite that. Make sure you buy a hook that fits into that bait. I tell people all the time, find a hook that you like and that you have confidence in, and then find a bait that holds that hook the best, and that's what you should flip with, because 9 times out of 10, I think it's a reaction bite anyway. I don't think they're really studying that bait at all with this technique. So it doesn't even really matter to me what I'm flipping. But that's coming from someone who spends 320 days on the water a year with a flipping rod in his hand. So I have confidence in this technique. If you're new to it, find something that looks good to you, and then find a hook that'll hold that bait. And again, over time, as long as you're getting bites, if you're losing some fish at first, you can go back and pick away and move some pieces to your setup around to try and prevent losing fish. Whether that might mean switching your flipping hook or rod or reel. But at first, it's all about getting bites. So flip something that looks good to you. At the end of the day, every flipping bait on the market is going to get bit at some time. It's going to work, all right, or they wouldn't be selling them. So pick something up that looks good to you and pitch it with confidence. And with that being said, this is something, once you find that bait that you like, buy a ton of them. One of the biggest things I see that happens to people as well is, I have this here. This is a 3/4 ounce. This is an Arc tungsten rigged up with a Gambler Ugly Otter. My camera is not wanting to focus. I don't know why. Either way, a lot of times what will happen is the bait, the hook will come out of the bait. The hook will go through the bait. Okay. I know this is not focusing at all. It's trying to focus on my face, but the bait will get ripped. You'll get hung in the grass. The bait will go down on the hook. The bait will get used and abused, more or less. It'll have rips in it, and people will try to make that bait last a lifetime. I tell people, if your bait gets a rip in it, has a hole in it, rip it off and throw it in the bottom of the boat. It's not because I'm made of money. I'm far from it. I know baits are expensive, but especially when you're getting used to this technique, you want to be as efficient and effective as you can. The more you try to make that bait stay on that hook and recycle that bait, more or less, the easier you're going to get snagged. The more times your hook is actually going to fall out of the bait or rip through the bait. You're going to get hung on wood, on grass, whatever it is you're flipping, and you're going to get discouraged. You're going to put the rod down. I tell people on my boat all the time, they're learning how to flip, and I'm watching them get hung on buggy whips 25 times, and they won't switch the bait. And I tell them, listen, I don't collect these things. They're here for you to use. Rip it off and get a new one. Because if you're getting hung, you're going to get discouraged, and you're just not having fun anymore. So if you get a rip in your bait, although everything is going up in price and is expensive, when you're first learning, throw it in the bottom of the boat, put you a fresh bait on. And another thing that might help overall is, and this is a personal preference thing, I don't snell my hooks. I never have. I never will. I don't like the idea of snelling. I get it. It makes sense. But for me, it doesn't. It's just not what I want to do. And a big reason for that is you're going to get hung up more. I don't care what anyone tells you. You are going to get hung and fouled up more with a snelled hook as opposed to just a regularly tied hook. Okay? I use a uni knot for everything. It holds with my heavy braid. I have absolutely no issues. I've never had one pull. A Palomar knot, an improved clinch knot, whatever it is you want to use. But I tell people, a lot of people watch all these videos on punching mats, flipping grass, that you have to snell your hook. I never have. And I really don't lose a lot of fish. But every time that hook does what it's intended to do with the use of a snell knot, as in kicking up. That bait, that hook is kicking up in that bait, and it's going to snag and pull through the bait and hook into whatever it is, whatever type of cover, grass, structure that it is that you're flipping to. Again, you're going to get discouraged, you're going to get frustrated, and you're going to put the rod and reel down. So, quick recap. I kind of had a list here. I'm not lying. I got something I'm reading off of. Go on a good day when the conditions call for flipping. Your rod doesn't have to be a 7-Eleven $500 flipping rod. You can get there, but start with something that you're just comfortable with. Start with an all-purpose rod and work your way up. You don't have to have super heavy line. That's very cumbersome to use. Get used to it. Get used to the rhythm of just flipping in and of itself. When the bait hits the water and it's a loud splash, don't let that discourage you. It is what it is. You're going to perfect that over time as well. Flip a bait that you have confidence in, whether it's something you saw on TV, whether it's something you saw while going down the aisle of your local tackle shop, and you just say, that caught my eye, I want to use that. Use that. It's the best thing you can use to get started. Don't baby that bait. Don't recycle it. If you get a rip in it, rip it off the hook, throw it in the bottom of the boat, and grab you a new one. So that way you're not getting constantly hung up on what it is you're flipping. And try not snelling your hook if that's been a problem for you. If you're catching fish snelling a hook, then do not change. If it works for you, that's what you need to stick with. But I give people that tip very often on my boat, and it definitely improves, their flipping game with them not getting snagged. So hope that helps some of you guys out. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave it in the comments below. And if you want to come book a trip and flip on Lake Okeechobee with me, my information is in the description below as well. And that's about it. I appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you guys on the next one. Tight lines.